Hey guys, welcome back. Just a quick one today. This is going to be a quick 10-minute jobby. I've got some new camera equipment I'm testing, so hopefully I'm looking a little bit more cinematic today. Got a Yamaha Thunderace 1000, not a Thundercat, which is a 600. Yamaha YZF1000 Thunderace. It's got a weird, and only when it's hot, so you warm it up. As it's warming up, it's absolutely fine, but when it gets sort of just up to operating temperature, when it's ticking over, it starts to drop a cylinder, sort of on off, goes on to 3, then back on to 4, then back on to 3, and when you try and pull away, it's obviously on 3 cylinders, and it's a bit and then, do you like my impression of an engine? It's a bit misfirey until you get just sort of 2,500 revs, then all of a sudden it's on 4 cylinders and it clears and it goes. Classic blocked pilot jet, or partially blocked pilot jet. So I'm not going to turn this into a massive big how-to-y type video. I just wanted to test this camera out. I've also got some radio mics coming, which will mean my audio should always be good as well, because I do cringe when I look back at some of my videos. They're a little bit like, it's a bit close to the... Anyway, yeah, so get this bike on the bench and I'll do a few shots with a new camera and do some, you know, like try and do some nice shots for you, and let's see how this camera works out. That's kind of what this video is about, really, and you'll get an idea of the sort of quality of stuff I'm going to try and start to produce from now on. Right, get this bike on the bench. Righto guys, so as it warms up, you'll find that we'll get a miss because it's not quite up to temperature yet. There it is guys. It took a while to happen actually. It's warmer than it needs to get last time. Makes me maybe think that maybe it's not a pilot jet. There's me saying it's classic pilot jet. And also, I don't know whether the mic's picking it up or not, but you can hear a little bit of a ticking in the background when it's misfiring. It's the exit valve shattering. You get that now? That's on 3 cylinders. As soon as you bring it off idle, the mist goes away. Right, okay guys, so I just want to explain my setup slightly with my oscilloscope. So I've got this little jobby here, which is a little clampy jobby. It's an inductive pickup that clamps around a HT lead with a little Jubilee clip on it. So we clip that onto the HT lead, and then by the power of Grayskull, by the power of magic, now what it does is it basically, remember we discussed in one of the videos, current passing through a wire creates magnetic field, blah blah blah. Anyway, I'm in the danger of turning this into another how-to, and I don't want it to be. I want it to be a quick 10-minute jobby. We're looking at current flow through the HT lead, and it draws a waveform on the oscilloscope. Anyway, we'll take it to the oscilloscope and I'll show you what's going on with that. Okay guys, let's just talk a little bit about what we're looking at here. I don't want this to be a how-to, which I keep saying. Just want to explain, so when the engine's running, you have a basic idea of what you're looking at. So, you know, with an ignition coil that a magnetic field collapses and it creates a high voltage in the secondary winding, which is the winding that's got the ignition coil connected to it. And then the voltage in the coil builds to a point where it overcomes the air gap of the spark plug, and then you get a spark. So what we're looking at here, this has just been with the engine running. So this is the point where the coil's, the primary winding of the ignition coil has got current flowing through it. The igniter, or the ECU, or the control unit for the coil, turns off the earth, takes away the earth for the coil, so the magnetic field in the coil collapses, creates, this goes off there, and this is in kilovolts, so this is 6,000 volts here, and it's way up here somewhere off the screen. So the negative is taken away from the coil, ground side switch coil, which we've talked about in a previous video, I think. Turns the coil off, you get a real high voltage building until the point where it can overcome the resistance, the air gap of the spark plug inside the cylinder. And then this here, this is called the burn line. So this is the actual spark occurring, and it bleeds off all the energy that's in the coil to a point where the spark can't maintain its burn. The spark can't spark anymore, and then you lose the spark at this point, and then that's the residual energy draining away from the coil. So we do, fucking hell, this really is going to turn into a how-to. So what you do is, with that little doofy jobby tool, that little clamp for the HT lead, you can look at them individually. You could actually, this is a 2-channel scope, so I could look at 2 cylinders at the same time, but this is just a quick and dirty way of doing it. So I'll look at each cylinder individually, and this waveform can give you indication of whether you've got a lean misfire, shorted plug, shorted HT lead. You know, if you get used to looking at these waveforms, then you kind of can get an idea of what's going on with it. So anyway, let me start it. Where are we? What am I doing? Right, so let me get it running. Right, so this is a live waveform. That's one of the coils. Now what I'll do is I'll go over and I'll switch to a different coil. You stay looking at the screen there. Now then, here's an interesting thing. So I'll put it on, if I can get it on there, bear with me. Right, now then, it's on so it's wasted spark ignition. So there's one coil that does 2 cylinders. I think we may have talked about wasted spark in a previous video. If we haven't, we'll get to that one day probably. You're thinking, well, where's the waveform gone? Well, what you've got to do, you've got one secondary winding, and either end of that winding, am I in shot with my fingers? Either end of that winding is a HT lead coming off one side and the other. So the polarity is different. It's sparking, the energy's travelling through the coil in one direction. So one HT lead, or one spark plug, the spark's going from the earth electrode to the centre electrode, and vice versa on the other spark plug, if you see what I mean. Anyway, I'm bloody waffling. So what we need to do here is we need to invert this channel. So if we turn the channel the other way up, now we can see the waveform again. The reason we couldn't see it is because you see this little cursor, that's what's triggering the scope to... Anyway, let's not get into that, down that bloody rabbit hole. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let it run for a little bit longer, and we're going to wait for this misfire to occur, and then with this scope we can identify which cylinder it is, and we might be able to get a little bit of direction as to what's actually causing the misfire. If it's a lean misfire, it probably won't show up on this waveform at idle. You need to do a snap throttle test, which is just blipping the throttle, and basically what you're doing is you're increasing combustion chamber pressure, which makes it harder for it to jump the gap. And if you've got a lean condition in the cylinder, we probably won't be able to see it with this bike, because it's only misfiring at tickover. And if it's a lean condition that's causing that misfire at tickover, the moment you blip the throttle, it gets fuel and it runs okay. But if you had let's say you had a carburetor with no fuel at all in the float bowl, what you'd probably see is, well, what you would see is you'd see this firing line, or the voltage building in the coil, and then you'd see the beginnings of a spark line, and then you'd see another firing line. It would jump back up again, and that tends to be when you've got a lean misfire. The fuel in the combustion chamber is a conductor, if you like. It increases the ability for the spark to jump the gap. So when the fuel's not there and it's a weak mixture or no mixture, it's just air, it's much harder for it to jump the gap, and so you get a little bit of a spark, and then there isn't enough energy in the coil, and you see this line shoot back up again, and then the voltage bleed away, so you don't get a traditional spark line. Anyway, I think that's enough about secondary waveforms. Let's wait for this to misfire and see if we can identify the cylinder and get a bit of an idea of what might actually be wrong with it. I'll tell you what, guys, this bike's doing my head in. So, it's not doing it now. I've been pulling and pushing on those HT leads, getting waveforms to show you guys previously, and yeah, there's no misfire now, which makes me think that maybe it's an electrical miss and it's something coil HT related. Fucking hell, days like this I hate motorbikes. Well, that's no good. I can't tell him his bike is broken. I'm sure this guy's got 2 phone numbers. 952, is that the number I just rang? No. Different number. Let's try that one, shall we? It's ringing. Hi, is that Nige?
It is.
How you doing, mate? Yeah, it's good. Yeah, how's it going, mate? You right? Good, good. Ringing about your bike. It's not going to be ready tonight. It's driving me up the wall, to be honest with you. This misfire, I'm pretty certain it's not carburation related. Initially it wouldn't do it at all. I was like, what is he talking about? I can't get it to do it. Yeah, you said when you rode it over it for the first time ever, it hadn't done it. So I started it this morning, and yeah, sweet as a nut. I was like, what is going on? I thought I'll just leave it tick over on the bench for for ages till the fan comes on, and then like almost, it was almost ready to have the fan come on, and it started I could hear it getting a little bit uneven. And you could hear the exit valve chattering a little bit, and then it started getting a miss on one cylinder, and it turned into a dead miss on one cylinder. So happy days. So I got the tank off, started poking around with an oscilloscope, just looking at waveforms, trying to identify the cylinder and just be certain it was carburation related. And since I've disturbed the wiring under the tank, the misfire's gone away. I can't get it to do it again. So what I want to do is, it's so bloody hot, I just want to let it cool down and go from cold in the morning, if that's all right. I've got a free morning tomorrow morning, so I'm gonna give up now. I'm gonna throw all my toys out the pram. It's driving me mad. I suspect, yeah. I got it to miss. I got it to misfire, and then by moving the HT leads around, pulling waveforms out of the coils just to try and sort of identify the cylinder and see what was going on. Yeah, it stopped misfiring now. It doesn't matter how hot I get it, you get it till the fan comes on. It just sits on the bench there, ticking over happily. Doesn't miss a beat. I'm pretty confident that from what I've done so far, I don't think it's carburation. Yeah, maybe a plug cap, a HT lead. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's secondary ignition related. I'm tempted, if I can't, otherwise I'm just going to go round and round the fucking houses with it. I'm tempted, I'll just put the plugs in you've given me. What I'll do is because I didn't want to be spending your money by taking the carbs off and cleaning them just for the sake of doing it. Do you see what I mean? So what I'll probably do is I'll drain the float balls on the carbs, and I'll fill them up with carb cleaner and leave them overnight, so they can have a good soak without actually taking them off the bike. Leave them overnight. I'll put the plugs in the morning, and we'll see how we go. I'll run it again, and if the misfire's gone, it's gone. It's one of those things, isn't it? If it ain't broke, you can't fix it. Yeah. So, well, exactly. They love to prove you wrong. These things, don't they? Anything mechanical is. Well, you know what I'm talking about then. So I'll speak to you tomorrow if that's all right. You can do without it for a day, can't you? All right, legend. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thanks, buddy. Cheers, mate. Thank you. Bye. So that's always a... Luckily this guy's he's some sort of engineer, so he, you know, he has an appreciation of these things, and sometimes not straightforward. But this is, you know, you guys want a bit of a behind the scenes about how my life goes. This is often the case, you know, bikes, problems like this, it's the worst case scenario in the world, because you, if it ain't broke, you can't fix it. And it's obviously it's clearly it's clearly an intermittent fault. So you heard me talking to the guy, and let it cool down overnight, and we're going to go again in the morning. So there might be a second part to this one, but I'm fucking done with this for today, I think. See you on the other side.